2 books have been writing on the 3rd book. The first 2 books, Supply Chain Strategy and Financial Metrics, the strategy-driven supply chain, really tried to connect supply chain, strategy, and finance. Yeah? And a core concept there is the supply chain triangle of service, cost, and cash. I'm working on a new book. What will be the elements in the new book? First of all, sustainability. Yeah? It was mentioned in the pitch just before me. Ever when I first presented that supply chain triangle, people said, yeah, how do we tie in sustainability? Instead of a triangle, should it be a diamond or should it be a pyramid? Yeah. If you follow me on LinkedIn, I already shared some ideas there. Second element, volatility and resilience. For the new book, I organized a book council, around 20 people. So we tried to analyze drivers of volatility, internal, external drivers. I asked a question like, okay, what about our current supply chain capabilities? Yeah, are they capable to deal with the volatility? The answer is no. Yeah, if the answer is no, where is the impact? The answer is simple, all over the place. Service, cost, cash, financial metrics, non-financial metrics, CO2. We've been flying stuff like crazy over the last couple of years. And also people impact. Yeah? We've created a lot of stress in our organizations by not having proper planning processes or planning tools. Yeah? When we look about improving capabilities, in the book I will try to take 2 perspectives. First of all, the strategic perspective. So when we design our supply chains, yeah, how do we include sustainability? How do we include resilience? How do we make sustainability and resilience into strategic questions and strategic trade-offs? Yeah. Again, if you follow me on LinkedIn, I've been writing stuff about that. And also integrated planning. On the one hand, how do we include sustainability into integrated planning? On the other hand, what is the link between integrated planning and resilience or agility? The second one is relatively easy. Yeah? Disconnected planning, yeah, leads to the inverse of agility. Why? Because if plans are disconnected, yeah, different plans will make different assumptions, yeah, which per definition will be less good or wrong. Yeah? And it also means that, okay, it will take time before the assumptions are being updated, yeah? Not immediately, but maybe every week or every month. And it will probably also depend on people connecting to processes, trying to connect the information within the processes. But as I tell it, you already sense that the inverse of agile. So today I want to dig a bit more in what will come in the book on integrated planning, but before I do so, let me ask you a question. Yeah? Gartner has the maturity model for S&OP. It has 5 stages. If you can just show fingers, and what is your current level of S&OP maturity? So where do you think your current level of S&OP maturity is? Would it be 1? Would it be 2? Would it be 3? If you can just show some fingers. We're in the Netherlands. People are not supposed to be shy here. That's, yeah. I see 2, I see 1, I see 2, I see 3. Where do you think your S&OP maturity should be? Where do you think your S&OP maturity should be? I see 4. I see 5. I see 5. I see 3. Some people would tell me, hey, Bram, not everybody needs S&OP maturity level 4. I fundamentally disagree. I believe that everybody needs at least maturity level 5. What is maturity level 5? It's about being connected to key customers and key suppliers. You are the experts. You tell me how you will operate your supply chain if you're not connected to key customers and key suppliers. Yet demand has become less predictable. Yeah, but then stop guessing what the customer will buy from you. Yeah? Go and sit with that customer, make sure you have visibility on the inventories and the planned consumptions, and talk about it. Right? So we need to be connected. Level 5 maturity is also about being able to monetize the decisions. Yeah? Again, tell me in the current volatile markets, if you think it is appropriate to run your supply chain with volume-based decision-making as opposed to value-based decision-making. Right? So some kind of how we still think that level 3 or 4 is good enough, it's not. Maybe level 3 or 4 was good enough 10 or 15 years ago, but it's not adequate today. And then I started asking the question, Yeah, but is level 5 maturity good enough? Is level 5 maturity good enough? How can we answer the question? I said, okay, well, if we want to answer that question, let's start with the question, why do we do S&OP? Why do we do S&OP? Or a linked question, what is a typical struggle when we want to improve S&OP? S&OP, in essence, is a cross-functional process. So the goal of S&OP is connecting the silos in the company. What is the key issue in improving S&OP? It's not the systems, it's not the data. You can have a lot of issues, but these are easy to solve. It's about the people and really connecting the different functions. There's a lack of buy-in. What does that mean? People don't understand the value and they don't want to collaborate in the cross-functional process, right? So that's the key issue. And then I said, okay, so if it's about cross-functional collaboration, let me go back to one of the early works on process management and cross-functional processes. Yeah, and process management or cross-functional processes was a big thing in the 90s. Yeah? And one of the famous books and iconic works is there from Rumler and Brage, Improving Performance. And the subtitle is How to Manage the White Space on the Organization Chart. So what it says is, how are we organized? Functionally. We are organized in silos. What do they see as the challenge? The challenge is in the white space. Yeah? So the space between the functions, between the functional silos. And if you reread the book, it says, as organizations, we have forgotten that value flows across the silos. Right? That's how we generate value, by cross-functional collaboration. Quick recap. So marketing identifies needs, delivers promises and promotions to customers. Marketing gives new product ideas to research, which turns it into product specs, which turns it into product designs for manufacturing. Sales gets orders from the customers, contracts and prices. Yeah? Manufacturing will deliver the products, and manufacturer will need to deliver orders to the suppliers, which deliver the raw materials. And then we have finance, which is connected to a financial ecosystem, and we have HR, which is linked to a labor ecosystem. Yeah? Our competition is active in the same markets, and it says it has been adapted. Why? I added the environmental ceiling and social foundation, which for me is one of the ways to include sustainability into the equation. Yeah? We're not just having service, cost, or inventory targets. We also have CO2 targets. Yeah? And the target is to reduce. So CO2 is on the ecological ceiling, and the ceiling is coming down. We also have a social foundation. Yeah? When we source from a supplier, it's not just about the cost and the quality and the lead time. It's also about, is this supplier socially responsible? Yeah? And the requirements on social responsibility are getting ever more strict. Yeah? So the floor is coming up and the ceiling is coming down, and that's let us say, the business system that we need to operate. And then I say, okay, if this is what we need to manage, how many planning processes do we currently have to manage this? I found at least a couple. So we probably have a financial planning process, we have a supply chain planning process, yeah? We have a resource planning process, which is more executional. We probably have some kind of sales planning process, like how do we want to expand the business, which product groups, which regions. We may have a trade promotion planning process, which is all about the promotions. We may have a portfolio planning process, which is linked to a product lifecycle planning process. So at least these are common processes I occur. How do we organize this? Typically, we organize in a disconnected way. That's how we organize. That becomes even more visible when I look at the systems which are supporting these processes. How many systems would you have in your company to support these processes? Many, I think. Yeah? So the fragmentation becomes even bigger. We might have an FP&A system, we might have an advanced planning system, we may have a trade promotion planning system. How do companies do this? What I quite often see is, we've done a software selection for a supply chain planning system, and the sponsor is the VP of supply chain. And in parallel, finance has selected its financial planning system, and the sponsor is the CFO. And marketing has selected a trade promotion planning system, and the sponsor is the VP of sales or the VP of marketing, right? So we're building disconnected islands, and in many companies, nobody really ever asked the question, like, how should these things integrate? We don't seem to be concerned about that question. And still I said, okay, not integrating or disconnected planning is the inverse of agility. If we want to be more responsive, we need to make sure that the information flows. So there's a lot of work to be done here. And then I said, okay, so if I take 2 steps back, why do we do S&OP? To connect the functional silos. How do we currently connect the functional silos? By disconnected planning processes, and even more disconnected systems. If you are lucky, you have only one version in each block, but many companies have multiple ERPs, multiple trade promotion planning systems, and then we create our own complexity and our own nightmare. So how could we clean this up? What can be done to clean this up? I have a proposal, a vision. First step, integrate financial planning and supply chain planning. I'm done with the situation that we say, we have supply chain planning and then we have financial planning. 75% is the same of the engine. So we first duplicate the effort, and then we triple the effort by trying to integrate the two. It's not very efficient because it's creating a lot of costs, and it's also not very effective. Why is it not very effective? Finance doesn't have the appropriate details to do good controlling and to do good analysis, because it's typically starting from a higher level of aggregation. And supply chain doesn't have proper financial information to make decisions. Again, we need to question ourselves whether that's appropriate in today's market circumstances. Also, if you combine the two processes, I've described that in my last book, you get an output like a working capital forecast. Working capital is an essential part of your cash flow. It's the most volatile part. So it's something that you almost get for free. So don't tell me that you're not interested as a company to get that, right? So in that sense, Hans, unfortunately, I disagree, but I'm sure we will have a good discussion on that later on. But I truly believe that we need to integrate these two. It's also the only two plants who are fully connected end-to-end, from the customer to the supplier. Both plants have that intrinsic need. So let's put those two together as a solid foundation. Then we need to connect the rest of the plants. Just take trade promotion planning. I often see, for instance, like, we have good promotion info for the next 12 weeks, and then the demand like dies. But if the demand dies after 12 weeks, I cannot do proper capacity planning. Whereas supply chain, we need to understand, not doing proper capacity planning is simply not okay. It's not professional. So we need to be much more strict in what we require also as input from these planning processes into our core planning process over here, and what we can give back. So if I'm doing proper capacity planning over here, at least my direct labor should be an input into my workforce planning over here. Right? And some pieces could be kept separate, but we need to properly define the interfaces. Step 3, integrate with key customers and key suppliers. Not doing that is not an option, right? So we need to create a mental condition for ourselves that not doing that is not an option. And then the last but not least, integrating those non-financial metrics, environmental metrics, social metrics, really in the heart of our decision making. I think even during one of the breaks, a typical example could be, okay, sales says the last or the first week of December, we have this customer, it's that big order, and then there is a lot of pressure to still deliver or ship the order because then we can recognize the revenue this year. So quite often today, that's purely a financial discussion, right? But yeah, if all of a sudden we need to disrupt production to produce that big order, there could be all kinds of impacts. Yeah? If I'm a food company, there could be food waste, but from an environmental perspective, I might have objectives to reduce waste. Yeah? If all of a sudden I need to produce that big production order, that could create overtime or weekend work, which is putting a stress on my people, so that has a social impact. Yeah? Most probably I may need to do expediting to still ship that order this month so I can recognize the revenue. Yeah, that could have a CO2 impact. So here again, instead of just having that service cost and cash at the base of our decision-making in planning processes, we also need to make sure that we more properly include non-financial metrics, yeah, so that we can make decisions across the broader set of information. Yeah. And that's the vision I wanted to bring you. I'm still hesitating here. Martijn didn't like integrated value planning, so we will continue the discussion about that. But at least it's meant to be a vision on how we go beyond level 5 S&OP maturity. S&OP maturity still means that we accept that S&OP and financial planning are two disconnected processes. I think that's fundamentally flawed. Yeah? And it's a vision on where I believe integrated planning could go or should go, and we will come back to that later also during the roundtable discussion.